So I want to just thank Butler for asking me to share. I think he texted me about 11 o'clock and asked me what I shared. So I guess I was like his first choice, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, first I was going to say no, because, when you have to get vulnerable sometimes and then to tell my story, that's just for me sometimes, even though I'm a minister in another fellowship, I still struggle with speaking sometimes, or so I tell myself. But anyway, would y'all like to help me reopen the meeting with the third step prayer? God,
take my will and my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live clean.
That's the trick. So I gotta use my phone because I'm still trying to continue to improve my memory. It has been a struggle through the last several years of my life, and so I'm still improving that. So I try to write down stuff so that I can remember where I need to be at. Also wanted to just tell the home group, this is my home group, that if I've offended anybody, I definitely apologize and ask that they forgive me. And if anybody offended me, I forgive you as well. And that don't happen too often, but I am human, so I make mistakes too. Also, if I begin to start crying uncontrollably, I just got off all my meds several months ago. I just said, you know what? They seemed like they was just piling up, and I just said, you know what? I'm done with all of them. I watched my wife come off all her medicine over several years and just wean herself off. And I just said one day, I ain't taking none of it. And I started doing all supplements. So as a result of that, me and the wife could be watching like Good Times or something, and I started crying. She's like, you really? And then the joke now is I can look at her and I say, babe, I can start crying at the drop of a hat. It don't take nothing. So I begin to cry. That's what it ain't necessarily, twofold. I think what it is, I have been holding in so many emotions for so long in my life. And then before I could even get a life of being clean, living clean, I was taking medication. Before I could even, I never really have given myself to experience all kinds of range of emotions. So sometimes I guess now they just pour out. Yeah. But anyway, for me getting here, growing up for me was like this. I came up in the era where, because of my skin complexion and because of where I lived at, I grew up in Avondale. I grew up in North Avondale, so it wasn't as rough as South Avondale was where I grew up. But still, the kids that I grew up with teased me on a daily basis. And for whatever reason, I didn't have that kind of mouthpiece where I could battle back with words. So I would just sit there and take it. And it almost felt like I would be in the center of this circle and they would be teasing me and I would just take it. Now, and I wasn't fearful as far as that. I just didn't know how to talk back. So, and then what was going on inside my household, I grew up in an abusive household. My father was very abusive, psychologically, emotionally, physically. But when I share, and I always share what it was like for me growing up, sometimes I don't get to really say who my father was. My father has went on to glory in 2005. So I want to say that my father was one of the first people in his family to ever go to college. My father was amongst two other black people that was the first one in their city to go to high school. They were spit on, talked about, but he still graduated high school, went on to college. My father went in the Air Force. My father protected us. He coached, he started a baseball team and was our coach, and we had the second best looking uniforms in the league, and all of this stuff. My father was a great man. It wasn't until after I started to get my head clear that I really looked at all that he was to me. In my darkest moments, it was my father that was there for me. But however, growing up was kind of rough. I was being teased outside, and then I really didn't have the support in the home that I could come home and get up under my mom or get up under my father, because my father saw it a sign of weakness if I cowered up under my mother. So I spent a lot of time alone. I remember the first time my father told me that if there was anything going on, I could come to him and talk to him about it, this and that. And the first time I attempted to do that, it turned to me getting jumped on. My father abused me and my brother. I mean, he whipped us with the belt, my brother, with the buckle, blood coming out his back. If his friends came over to the house, they would say, "Man, leave them boys alone. Try to protect us." My father would say stuff to us like, "I don't like that story. Go back and come up with a better one." That's a setup, because if I change the story, that means I'm going to get my ass whooped, because now I'm lying. I stick to the lie no matter what. My brother would go ahead and confess up and get the brunt end of everything. My father would have us waiting in the room, and I remember all the time before he was coming, I was always hear the belt jingling down the hallway. When I got older and wearing belts don't make noise by themselves. You got to shake the belt. That bothered me even to this day when I think back on that. Dang, you did that? You was trying to scare us like that? My father would have company in the household, and he would call us in there around the company, and he would say, "Clean the carpet." That didn't mean get the vacuum. That didn't mean get that one push one you got that, remember, you used to push, pick up, and you could empty it. That meant we would get on our hands and knees, and we would walk around on the floor. Excuse me, bro. Excuse me, babe. And we would pick up all the trash in front of everybody, whoever was over the house. He abused my mother. And this really messed me up really bad. My brother was 1 year older than me. So when my father jumped on my mother, I was so terrified, I never helped her. And, I told y'all I got the medicine gone, so I started crying. But anyway, stuff like this. And I could never figure out why my mother would still go hang out with her friends and do stuff, because I could see it. It was like I was a 3-year-old kid, but I could already know, dang, he gonna jump on her when she come home, because he did it every time. And we were real disciplined. They used to call us the work boys in the neighborhood. Our friends called us the work boys because at an early age, we could bring all 20 garbage cans down from both buildings. We couldn't push the lawnmower, but we could do everything else. We'd clean all the hallways. My parents didn't have to tell us to empty the trash, wash the dishes, or none of that. It was like clockwork. He would leave a list of chores before he left every day religiously. This is what I want done. And a lot of times we didn't have a lot of time to go out and play with the other kids. So when they went somewhere, give you an example of some of the stuff, how it was. When they went somewhere, when we heard the car pull up, we were supposed to come sit in the living room and wait by the front door. And I remember one time we heard the car pull up, and we go up and we sit by the front door, and I heard a little commotion in the hallway, and me and my brother sitting there. And next thing I know, the whole front door come down, and he'd have knocked my mama through the front door. And he got her by the hair, and he kicking her in her head and face. And I froze. My brother would try and jump on my daddy's back, try to call 911. I ain't do nothing. Boy, I love my mama to death. I ain't do nothing. And that haunted me throughout my life, that I ain't try to defend my mama. So that's what it was like. So when I went outside, I got teased. So, and my mother ended up in a state like this. I couldn't even come in the house and say, Mom, I cut my leg or I got cut. Because she would be walking around the house. Because she done did her so dirty. She would be walking around the house, nervous breakdown state, just back and forth mumbling and, because he had did her so bad. And if I said, Mom, I cut myself or something, she would just break down. So that's how it was for me growing up. So when I got in high school, one time my mother was having one of these, like I say, forgive me for the tears running. But anyway, I cried, but this is just like, it's a little overkill, because I tell you I ain't on the medicine. But anyway, my mother was walking around having one of these nervous breakdowns, and I remember she mumbling, only stayed because of y'all. And see, another thing my father did was, he walked around in fur coats, jewelry, he drove Cadillacs, all of that. He had the job that paid all the bills. My mother cooked, was like a kitchen, worked in the kitchen at the VA or whatever. I didn't even know my mother could read and write. I never went to my parents to help me with schoolwork or none of that. And come to find out later, the little job my mother had, she was paying all the bills, and he was spending his money on ladies, this and that. Still, when I go out of town to where my family is from, women still to this day pull me to the side and be like, I knew your daddy real well. He was a Rolling Stone, so he lived a lavish lifestyle and kept us bare minimum with whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about y'all. When I used to go to Kings Island, I went to Kings Island with $5 in my pocket and came back with change. That's how I grew up. And so when my mother mumbled that she only stayed because of us, I was able to talk to my mother and convince my mother that she could leave. And my mother left and got her own apartment. And I remember when I graduated, when I grew up, I smoked weed and I drank. I remember first time I ever smoked weed, I was stuck up against the wall, and it felt like I had something under my tongue. My mouth was stuck open, and I was frozen in a house party all night long in the same spot. I was like a zombie. I couldn't wait to get high again. And I remember drinking. At first, when I started drinking, I would fake it with the guys, and then I would spit it out or act like I was drinking. I didn't like it, but as you continue to do stuff, you get better at it. So I really didn't even like getting high. I just kept doing it. I guess I just didn't want to be whoever I was. But anyway, so I remember graduating, going into my mother's apartment and saying, we graduating, won't you come to the party? My mama came to the house. I wasn't thinking about my mom. I was thinking about smoking weed and getting high and this and stuff. And I remember when the party was over, my mama saying, okay, I'm glad. I said, no, mama, just stay here. Told my mama to stay in the house, even though I wasn't going to be there. I'm not running the streets. I know how we did when we was teenagers. Just getting high and partying. Man, I came home. I told my mama to go in our room and close the door. And I came home. He done broke in the room and jumped on her in. It's like, dang. So right after high school, I had the bright idea I was going to join the military, and I joined the military. And that was cool for me because I was able to go and be whoever I wanted to be. I didn't have to be, and one thing I carried with me at an early age is I started to physically put my hands on people when they teased me or if things didn't go my way, especially if I saw somebody that appeared to me like a bully. I really wanted to get at that person because I was really trying to, I guess, rectify the way that I lived. So when I went in the Army, I transformed into this person that I really wasn't. Just before going into the Army, I didn't have a girlfriend until I was like in 11th grade of high school. I was afraid to talk to girls because I felt less than. I remember I was dark skinned, they teased me. I remember being little and being in the pool and coming out the water, and it's the nicest thing I had ever heard anybody say to me when I was a little boy. This girl said, "Oh, he got some pretty black skin," and I remember that to this day because I didn't have a lot of things said to me that made me feel good about myself. I grew up with low self-esteem. I didn't race the kids on the sidewalk. I didn't think I was good in sports. I didn't compete. I just stayed to myself because my self-esteem was rock bottom. I didn't really have nobody to bounce stuff off to. So when I went into the military, I could be this person. So I went in there like I was the tough guy, was this, and that. And as a result of that, a lot of things happened in my life. I had a lot of physical altercations when I was in there. I made a lot of mistakes. I also remember being sent to treatment in the military. And I remember sitting in treatment and thinking, telling the counselor, "Don't you drink every now and then? So what's the difference between me and you?" I'm in a circle and don't even realize I'm where I'm supposed to be. And as a result of not having people in my life to bounce stuff off of while I was in the military, I got married twice. And both times I got married, I didn't run it across nobody. I walked to my mama and I said, "Hey, meet such and such. This is my wife." She said, "What?" I did that twice. Needless to say, neither one of them relationships worked out. The second wife, anybody I kind of came in encounter with really was like a hostage because I was really controlling. I wasn't a really, really heavy guy, but I was a big, tall guy, and I was well trained in the military. And make a long story short, the second wife, who told me multiple times that she wasn't in love with me. "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." Then it went, "I don't love you." Then it went, when I went to the war, "Why don't I stay in the States when you come back and you finish out your tour in Germany?" Hence, I used to be the person to say, if I'm with a woman that don't want me, because I tell you, I acted like I was somebody I wasn't. I acted like I was a ladies' man. Back in them days, Michael Jordan came in style, so my first duty station was Hawaii. And when I remember when somebody first gave me a compliment, I was walking, it's like, "Ooh, girl, look at him." I was like, "What? They talking about me?" When I knew I was in style, I was in style. I rolled with that. And this woman told me she wasn't in love with me, but I didn't have no foundation in myself. I don't know about you. Going through school and going through life, I never knew what I wanted to be in life. When you asked me in school what you want to be when you grow up, I had to just make something up. And I only stayed in the military. I was in there 10 years. Only stayed in there because I didn't have no self-esteem that I could do anything else. And I didn't like it. I just stayed in there because there wasn't nothing else left to do. And then, as long as I had somebody there with me. See, when I went in the military, it didn't matter. It could be a one-legged dog limping across this floor right now. I didn't spend the night by myself hardly no nights. I picked somebody up, something or somebody I had to have, whether it was the dope. And when I went to the Army, now instead of just smoking weed and drinking, now I'm exposed to everything. All the kind of dope. Back then, we freebase. And I remember knowing, too, how good the dope was, but realizing that it wasn't good for me and realizing that it was addictive and being able to step away from it and then would only use it when I come home on leave. So as a result of not wanting to be by myself, that means that the people that I got in relationships with, I was just really using them so I wouldn't have to face myself. Make a long story short, in my 10th year of my career, the woman that said that she wasn't in love with me, let me tell you this. This is how my feelings was. I'm with a woman that I really want to be in love with, but she ain't feeling me. Never was. I manipulated the whole situation all the way till I got her to marry me and come to Germany with me. She never really wanted me, but I manipulated that situation. And I remember, like when we was in Germany, this is how the kind of feelings I would get. We was on the basketball court playing basketball, me, her, and my friend. And when my friend had the ball, she would be all over him, laughing and giggling. Then when I had the ball, she barely touched me. And I remember wishing that she treated me like she was doing my friend. That's how my relationship was. And so one day she decided to bring somebody else in the house. Make a long story short, I got sentenced to 8 years in the penitentiary. I viciously stabbed a man. Took 2 police officers out. I thought I killed the man. And I remember escaping and invading. When I walked out the door of that house, y'all, my adrenaline was so high. If I wanted to, I could have, and I tell people this, and I do believe I could have walked through a wall of the house if I wanted to. Anything I touched went down. And I remember in the house, police putting guns to my head. My daughter to this day, my stepdaughter, be reliving that story because she was in the house. And I remember looking at the police officer telling them, go ahead and shoot. That's what she wanted anyway. And I remember stepping out on the porch and the police and the ambulance was already on the street. I used to just tell that story like I did this on the raw, but I had drunk 2 40 ounces before that happened. So I had something in me too. You know, I used to never tell that part, but the bottom line is, yeah, I had drunk 2 40 ounces before that happened. And I made it. I remember making it to my friend's house and getting on the phone and calling my dad. I told y'all about my dad. And I remember thinking I had killed this guy. And I remember drunk to 240 ounces. When I got to my friend's house, he gave me a bottle of rum. And I downed most of the 5th of that rum. And then I called my father. And I remember I was in the bathroom on my knees and I was really scared. First I called my brother. He hung up on me. I called my dad. And I told him what happened. I said, man, I think I done killed somebody. And I never forget, I heard all my dad's wind come out of his body. He said, oh my God. And then he got himself together. I said, man, I think I done killed somebody. He got himself together and he came 6 hours away and picked me up. Then I found out that the guy lived, turned myself in. They had 35 years of charges strapped up on me because it was in Kentucky. And in Kentucky, ain't no bonds. They had a $100,000 cash bond. I wasn't getting out this and that. One of my first glimpse of the power of God. So no lawyers won't take the case because I messed a police officer. I broke one police officer's jaw, and the other police officer, when I slammed her unconscious, I had pit bulls in the house, and they ate the police officers up while they was on the ground. So it made CNN news. So it was real messed up. And so I wouldn't have no daylight. And I remember praying, reading this camouflage Bible I had, and thinking to myself, okay, they telling me to have hope and trust that God gonna get me out of here. And I remember slamming that Bible down and jumping up in my rack. And the next morning, it was like a weekend. The next morning, they woke me up and took me to the courthouse. And my public defender said to me, he said, if you take this plea today, they're going to consider shock probation. They're going to let you out of here. And I said, what? He said, trust me, Gary. And mind you, I just came to the conclusion that wherever I was at, God going to be with me. That next day, I got out. And I came back a couple months later, turned myself in, went to prison. Talk about my mama, right? And I remember I was in the penitentiary. I had this guy looking after me or whatever, helping me. And of course, I'm putting a little money on his book. He's my friend. He's showing me the ropes. And I'm telling him, yeah, man, they told me they're going to give me shock probation. He's like, fool, they ain't giving nobody that. They just told you that to get you in here. So I get shipped off to the penitentiary, call my mama up. Mama, I'm in the penitentiary. Said, oh, I'm going to call the judge, baby. I went and picked up my friend. I said, my mama said she gonna call the judge. She looking at me like, fool. That don't mean nothing. Talked back to my mama. I said, my mama said, baby, I talked to the judge. He said he gonna get you out of here. I go to my dude in the joint. I said, yeah, man. My mama said she talked to the judge. He gonna get me out of here. Man, I rolled out. I'm talking about the favor of God on your life even when you don't realize it. And the reason I say that is because we all sitting in this circle right now and might not have recognized that it was only because of his power and his will that we sit here today. You might have did some superhero stuff. We all have. Jumped out of windows, rolled out of cars, all of that. Got locked up with the dope in our mouth, the whole 9 yards, right? But it was God that ultimately kept us.
Recovery.
Man, look. So I did that time only to 25 minutes. Only to come out of prison and still be an addict.
Come on.
So I had all this stuff, right? I got to tell this part. I had all this stuff that I accumulated when I was in the Army from that wife. I took it out of storage. I had an apartment downtown on 12th and Broadway, a little flat. When I got out instead of living with my mom or my dad, my pride. I didn't want to because I was exposed now. I wasn't that soldier you thought I was. Now that I lost everything. It was like night and day coming out of the military life, going back to the streets. And I told you I used to get high when I was in the military, only to put the dope down and go back to the military. But this time, after getting out of prison, I came home, took that apartment on 12th and Broadway. I was walking past the dope man in the hallway every day. The first time I took that dope, this time it brought me to my knees. It crushed me. All kinds of stuff happened, as we all know. One thing I did was I took an apartment in English Woods, and I put all this stuff in that apartment. I had china from every room. I had all the stuff I done bought for 10 years in the military overseas. I had crystals on every table. My speakers weighed 100 pounds. They'll walk across the floor if I turn the music up. I had grandfather clocks. This is English wood. Every room in the house is laid marble. I'm not trying to boast. I'm just saying what I had because I need to tell you that one day I never was a hustler. I was a fake baller. I could dress it up. I couldn't even count dope. I could spend a lot of money on it, but I didn't know what I was getting at the time. Right. I wasted half the dope trying to learn how to get high. I never was good at the game. I never was a player. I couldn't cheat. I couldn't do nothing. I wasn't that guy. One day, piecing all of this stuff out my house, I got a bright idea. Now, I would have people with me, like they work for me, but they just get high with me. I took care of everybody. You didn't really work for me, because I could have a whole plate of dope and wouldn't sell $5 worth. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I went to the dope man. He was moving down the street. I went to the dope man and said, come get everything. Woo!
Everything must go.
He took his U-Haul after they moved and brought it around in my house. Took everything. I remember they was looking at my papers in the desk, all my personal stuff. He said, what you want to do with it? I said, dump that shit out. Take everything. Boy, when that dope was gone, I had a green military cot. That's what I had left in the whole apartment. I said, take everything. Everything. Even the rugs and all of that in the back. Everything. Boy, tears start rolling down my face. It's over now. Now I'm suicidal again. I called Mom. It's over. She called crazy brother. I guess he on his way. Dudes stopped by the door. The dudes that I had with me, they sitting there like it's all good. They good now. They don't know I'm getting ready to do a meltdown. Man, dude came in that apartment, had an empty pipe. I tried to get a hit off of it. Tears dried up. I'm ready to roll again. It sent me some kind of shockwaves through me. Instead of committing suicide, now I'm ready to roll. By the time I get outside, the police is already out there. I used to tell a story like I was running from the police. Hell, they weren't even chasing me. I'm running from myself. I jumped in the car. I jumped car? Because I got a glimpse of a hit. It wasn't even a hit. Just the thought of it. Now I'm ready to go again. Man, I jump in that car. I'm going down Westwood Northern Boulevard. Y'all know them hills? Lie to you not. I'm skiing down every curve. I can hear the people in the car in front of me screaming. Wow. That car, at some point, I got my pit bull with me. At some point, I just had to let it go. And I grabbed my dog and I jumped there, ducked down, and that car flipped over into the woods. Woke up in the back seat. My brother was on the scene because he had came there, right? That's who I probably was trying to get away from. This is the same people that would come to my house and demand that I not get high. And this is what they mean by self-centeredness. I used to think that what right do my father and my brother them got to come and demand what I do, and I ain't bothering them. But we do bother people when we get high because people care about us. And I remember they drugged me out the car, and I remember I was coughing glass up out my mouth, and the police said, what he spitting up? My brother said, he's probably spitting up crack. Woo! As soon as he said that, they took me and flipped me over, man, and started putting what's happening on me. While I was already paralyzed, right, from the car wreck, bled out my urine, my penis for almost 2 months. I'm talking about uncontrollable blood. I'm talking about walking in UC with towels with blood dripping. It's from the accident. I'm talking about being paralyzed, getting out the hospital, can't really walk, but walking from Wanda Hills to downtown with $5 in my pocket, only to walk back and be paralyzed again. How does that happen? To want to get high. That still wasn't enough to stop me from getting high. I need to say this. Did several treatment centers. Tried the other fellowship. None of that worked. Well, I didn't work it. I really wasn't working it. But also in my addiction, I fathered a child. I fathered my son today, who's incarcerated, who is a lot like me. That's a painful area for me. Because that dope got a way of changing us into people that we really not. And I said that I fathered my son in active addiction because once I came over to his mother's house enough times, getting high or drinking or whatever, one day I came home, she was gone, back out. Now we both out in active addiction. That was the ugliest thing that ever could have happened to us. I remember not being able to stand up for her and rescue her because the dope was more important. That hurt. I remember the look in her face, looking at me like, is you going to do something? Not long as I got this. It's my story. I got to be honest. I remember us planning on dropping the kids off at 241 or whatever it was called. Thank God he didn't allow us to do that. That was so we could get high freely. Woo! I don't know if I could sit in this circle if I'd have done that one. I remember leaving Cincinnati after those situations and running to Kentucky, where I ended up riding around getting high with another hostage in the car, riding around getting high. And I remember not even caring how we was rolling and wrapping the car around the pole. It almost seemed like I did it on purpose because I didn't even care. It was raining. And I remember my teeth went through my lip. And I remember I couldn't wait to get home to get the pipe out and start getting high. I was getting high with my mouth needing stitches, but still getting high. Now that I totaled the car, I remember going to Wilmington, Delaware, moving up there. See, everywhere you go, you take you with you.
Yes.
And I remember I'm going to start this new life. And I took another hostage, her and her family. Now I'm getting high up there. right? And I remember telling her, I can't continue to live like this. See, I don't know about you, but when the dope was good is when I wanted to kill myself. And I committed a carjacking in Delaware. I carjacked a lady that was the same age as my mother. And I was on the New Jersey Turnpike. And I was on my way to New York, and I was getting ready to do something real heinous. I didn't have a whole plan, but I was getting ready to do something real ugly. And I remember the car running out of gas. And I remember realizing that I ain't the person I claimed to be. I ain't know how to steal no gas and none of that. I stopped and got cigarettes, but I didn't put no gas in the damn car. And the car ran out of gas, and I was walking on the New Jersey Turnpike on the white line. And I was telling myself, I'm going to step out in front of a semi and kill myself. And they was coming by and they was blowing because I was just that close. I was just trying to get the courage up to step out in front of one. And the police officer pulled up and said, "Is that your car back there? You need some gas?" Boy, don't you know, I had it in me to shake it off and do another one. I didn't do that. I got in the back of the police car. Now I got a carjacking sentence. But something miraculous happened. I remember when I got in that police car, a certain type of calm came over me. I knew I couldn't hurt nobody no more. Knew I couldn't hurt myself. A peace came over me. And it was during that prison sentence, and this is my story, that I was able to meet my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I just got to tell it how it was for me. And that right there is what changed my life. And I was able to come out of prison. I want to tell you, yeah, I got high again when I got out. But what happens was, I said one day, I'm going to go. It was the Econo Lounge. I'm just trying to fast forward now. I went to the Econo Lounge. NA was having a function. I would visit NA just to watch y'all and see what y'all was doing because y'all was crazy and y'all was a trip, but I wasn't an addict, you know what I'm saying? And I remember seeing this lady take this picture in there. And that was my wife. And I like how she took the picture. But here's the trip. That day when I went to that place, I told you I didn't have a lot of time spent by myself. I don't have a lot of success living on my own. I have never really been successful at that. I can't be honest with you. I don't know what it's like to go home and be in your own apartment and live there for months and months at a time without getting high. Is that my bill? No. So I remember going to this place. I had not too long broke up with my child's mother. And I remember going to this place, saying to myself, I'm going to get me a woman tonight. And I told two of my friends from my hood, I'm going to get me a woman tonight. And I remember seeing my wife take this picture in that Econo Lounge. I remember it was up on Glendale, Milford. And I said something to her. She played me off to the left. And that's how we met. And we began to talk a little bit here and there. I started getting high once again. And I remember I had all these phone calls. My family, threats of sending me back to jail, all of this and that. But her calls that came to me was all love. She didn't come and kick it with me, except for that one time. She didn't come and kick it with me. But she would call and say, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here for you. It was just all, and I would listen to those messages, and I would say, when I get myself together, I'm going to go see her. And I remember going to her and telling her what I was going through, and she told me the message. I had heard it before, but I didn't hear it like this. I said, my problem is I can't stop thinking about the dope. I can't stop thinking about it. She said, first you got to stop using. She gave me the message. Any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire, you can find a new way to live. And that's what I said, what about that desire piece? She said, first you got to stop. And I did something I had never done. I told her all about myself. I said, I don't get high when things go bad. I don't get high I get high when the bills is paid, the job is going good, you comfortable, everything looking good, everything nice and smooth. That's when I go. Throw it all away. That's what I do. And I said, I get paid on Fridays. I said, but actually, my payday is on Thursday, but my check is in the bank midnight on Wednesday. And I did something else. I gave her my bank card. I just started going to meetings. I've never picked up dope since I started Narcotics Anonymous. When I stopped getting high, I still had money in my pocket. I hadn't burned a bank account. I hadn't sold a car. Hadn't did none of that. I just got honest as best I could and went to a meeting every day. And somehow the miracle happened and the desire was lifted. One of the things that I practiced early out was not going nowhere without a destination. If we fell out or something happened, I just stayed in the house. I didn't ride off. I got married at 6 months clean. We got married in Jamaica. When we got married, I found a bag of dope on the ground. I ain't smoking. I did take it back to the room, lay it in the dish, and analyze it every day. I analyzed it. Told myself because I'm going to leave it for the housekeeper when I leave. And I did. That's where I was at with it. Thank God I didn't pick it up. But today, if I see some dope on the ground, I'm going to keep it moving. I only had 6 months clean. Some people said it was a miracle that I came back clean. We've been married for 17 years. And we've been saying like this. I've been a manager on my job. I've been on my job 21 years. I've been clean 18 years. So I went through that stint on my job of dipping back and forth. I remember being down on Republic in my reflective vest. I had a shirt in the truck. But when it was time to go, it was time to go. I don't know about you. When it was time for me to go, my stomach would bubble. I got to go take a dump because I know it's getting ready to get real ugly. I got to go take a dump because my stomach is bubbling. I didn't even open the trunk to take the reflective vest off, so people on my job saw me downtown getting high. One person saw me was the mouth of the South. I know he was a talker. And so I went back to work with people knowing that I had been getting high. I started to go to my supervisor and say, man, I can't do this no more because I'm getting high. But I didn't. I just said I'm having problems at home. Had I had told them that, I wouldn't be in management today because they never could hold that over. So I went all those years with the stigma of being an addict and people knowing on the job that I was smoking crack. However, it's probably people that's still there today. But I've been there 21 years. It don't bother me no more if you know my past. Because I'm not trying to repeat my past. It bothered me being an addict when I wasn't sure if I was going to stay clean. It don't bother me today because I know today I'm not picking up no dope. I do this thing one day at a time. I don't make promises to people anymore like I used to. I can only promise you I'm going to do the best I can today because those promises used to get me high. When I promised my mama I ain't going to do it no more, this and that. I couldn't keep a promise to myself. Today I have a sponsor. I got my third sponsor. My first sponsor picked up. I changed sponsor from my second sponsor. My third sponsor is a member of my home group. All my sponsors, we still best of buddies. But I had to do what's best for me so that I could get another day clean. I am not perfect. I'm not a literature thumper. I told you I'm struggling with my memory is getting better. I'm trying to speak positive. My memory is getting better, so I don't retain stuff the way I would like to. But guess what I do got? I got the literature. I got a whole bag full of it. I might not pick it up, but I work with my sponsor every day. I work steps to the best of my ability. 18 years in, I'm on the 9th step. That's how it's been for me. But if I can get clean, anybody can. Because I didn't take right to this program. So I thank y'all for allowing me to share. I'm going to stop right there. Thanks, Brian.
We love you. Thanks, Gary.